Hi guys, welcome to the Wimbledon review of Sideline Chatter for Wimbledon 2025. Just a brief before we get into the questions, because this is like a very casual fan cast. It is going to be more like a discussion. We can be technical, we can be quirky, however we want. So that's the whole point of the channel as well, because we are all sports fans and we all have our expert opinions, but we never get to express them, let's say, on a larger platform. So that is the whole purpose of starting this for all sport fans in my friend circle and whatever extended friend circle. So for tennis, obviously, I thought of both of you. Rohan, he's also an established coach in Pune and has been like I know him for some time now, and he also has been my neighbor in a way, where my dad stays. And Rutwij, he's a friend, and he's also an avid tennis player, also coaching under Rohan right now. So you guys were the obvious choice for this Wimbledon review. So welcome, guys.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, Rohan.
So let's just uh, get into the thick of things. You guys, I'm sure you watched the final yesterday. So, what was your reactions? What were your reactions like? Whom were you supporting? And like, was it expected that it would be such a dominant performance from Sinner? Rohan, I'll get your view in first.
Yeah, I was supporting Sinner. I wanted him to win yesterday, especially after the French Open final. But
Yeah.
to be very honest with you, especially at Wimbledon, I thought Alcaraz had a better chance. Purely looking at his game, he has a better all-round game. I feel, he's got a lot of variety in terms of he's good at the net. He's got a good slice. We saw him give a lot of drop shots throughout the tournament. So I
Mhm.
actually thought Alcaraz had a better chance, but I think the way Sinner played, it was outstanding. I mean, he just dominated the entire match. Even if the score line, is four sets, but I think he dominated the entire match. So, I mean, he played really well yesterday.
Yeah, in fact, in a lot of Alcaraz's service games, also he was always catching up to Sinner. I mean, the first set, I had a joke with friends that I was watching the match with that, if this has to be a four-setter match, Alcaraz has to win the first set and then Sinner will just take it away. Rutwij, whom were you supporting and what was your reaction like? Were you happy that Sinner won or were you looking for a tighter contest?
I thought when the match initially started and Alcaraz won the first set, I was thinking that it's going to be a repeat of what happened for the last 2 years. But I was extremely surprised with the way in which Sinner had a comeback in the next three sets. I was actually also hoping that this could turn out to be a five-setter with Alcaraz breaking the serve and winning the fourth set. And there were some really, really intense rallies that happened in those last couple of games in the fourth set. I think also a few unlucky shots for Alcaraz, where it got brushed off the net and fell inside, and those crucial points, when you lose in a game, it's really disappointing. But yeah, Sinner was dominant, hands on. I mean, he was killing it. All his forehand winners, backhand down the line strokes, everything was on point. So yeah, I mean, he deserved it, I feel.
Yeah, I think like Sinner, even in the semi-final against Djokovic, I mean, Djokovic looked clueless at one point because of just the sheer power in which Sinner was playing, be it on the forehand, be it on the backhand. And like you said, Rohan, uh, Carlos's drop shots throughout the tournament were working so well for him, like, just moving the opponents in the court. And yesterday, for some reason, that was sort of like his bane because a lot of his drops either were not effective or then they like sort of ended up into some forced errors.
I think one of the other differences was that the way Sinner served. I mean, he served really well yesterday. If you see his first serve percentage, it was really high.
Yeah.
So, and like you said, the drop shots, I think what happens is if somebody like Sinner who's got tremendous court coverage, then you tend to go for something extra. So that is the reason I think he missed a few shots, and both of them. both of them had tremendous court coverage. Like Rutwij said, some rallies were really good. They made some unbelievable shots. I mean, you don't expect. You thought the point is over, but suddenly the ball is back. So these guys are just too fit, and their anticipation is so good. You know, it was a high quality match.
Yeah, it definitely was. And like at 22 and 23 respectively, I think in terms of world of tennis, these two have come of age, and I think at least in my view, and I would like to get your views on that as well, that the world of tennis is moving away from uh, the top three and like into the just these top two probably, like they are taking over the trio of Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer.
Yeah, you're right, man. I mean, it's in a way hard to digest. I would say that we are not going to see Joko or I mean Nadal and Federer have already retired. But then I was actually rooting for Joko in the semifinals. I mean, now going forward, whichever tournaments he's playing, we would just want to see him get that 25 tag. But with the kind of fitness these new players are having, it seems a little tough. So let's see what happens in the US Open. I'm guessing like Joko would probably have his last game at an Australian Open, this thing, but I'm not sure if it is going to be 26 or 27. You never know. He might just come up with, you know, completely new game next year and reach those semifinals, finals again. So I mean, he's the goat for sure. I mean, there's no questioning on it.
Yeah, and age is catching up to him, so I think he will sort of bring in some changes in his game. What do you think, Rohan?
I think,
Is
I think these guys have definitely come of age, and I think we can see a new generation of, rivalry between these two guys. Because even if you see the semi-final that Djokovic lost at this year's Wimbledon, we know that he was not 100%. He was not moving that well. But I think Sinner dominated the entire match. He was down love three in the third set, but if you see the overall match, you always knew that Sinner is going to win the match. I
yeah,
mean, he just played so well and completely dominated the match. It was not even a close match. So I think Djokovic can still go deep into tournaments, but I genuinely feel that it will be very hard for him physically now to beat these two guys. So I think, and even if you see the records now, I think the last slam Djokovic has won is in 2023, the US Open. So it's been
yes,
almost 2 years since he's not won a slam. So I
Yeah.
think these guys are the future for sure. And I
yeah,
hope that the rivalry continues for the next 10 years or so, because it's great for the sport, honestly.
yeah, I agree because I think since 2020, since the Australian Open last year, it's been shared between these two. Uh, so it sort of has paved the way to at least the next 5 years. Like they have sort of started to reach their peak from now on till they reach maybe 30. That we will see these two, really at the top of their games, and especially Sinner. I think he had like sort of. Back-to-back heartbreaks, or maybe you sort of he had a suspension um before the French Open. All the controversy around his, the doping scandal, and then the heartbreak at the French Open as well. I mean, as a tennis player, it really takes a lot of mental grit to come from that, from such a hard loss as well in a final, and then come back and dominate at Wimbledon, which is again such a prestigious tournament, and just win it with such dominance.
I think one more thing that we need to, kind of appreciate is that these two guys have such great sportsmen. They're so, I mean, even off the court, they're good friends. And if you saw the match against Dimitrov or even the French Open that Alcaraz won, he was the first one to appreciate Sinner. So they
Yeah.
are just, even that is something that we need to understand and appreciate.
Yeah, I agree. Rutwij, is this like Nadal versus Federer 2.0? Because they have been rivals on court and great friends off courts.
Yeah. I mean, like Rohan said, it's amazing for the sport. So I would want to see more of this going forward. If at all we could have like a third member added to this, team, that would be even better. But right now it seems like both of them are on the top, and it's great to see the way they push each other off court to achieve whatever they're doing. So let's hope this is Federer Nadal 2.0.
Yeah, I was coming to that, the third or the fourth person in the fray as well, going forward, because of late, especially in this tournament, we've seen players like, Taylor Fritz or Shelton, you know, coming, like, really being resurgent in a way, and, stamping their place to take themselves deep in the tournament. And how do you see these guys develop, uh, as the third person, let's say like a Murray for like Nadal and Federer.
I feel they definitely have the game. I mean, they definitely have the skill. It depends on how mentally tough they are, because at that level, most of them have really good skill. But it depends on how mentally tough they are, and if they can win close matches against these guys. They definitely have the game. I mean, Sheldon, for example, is so aggressive. You look at a match that he plays, any situation, he'll just go for it. I mean, that is something that is quite unique, and it's amazing. It's a good quality to have. But
Yeah.
like I said, it depends on how mentally tough they are to beat these two guys.
Yeah, I think mental toughness is what sort of makes the difference at the top. Uh, in fact, today we just saw a statement from Guran that which was concerning Tsitsipas, and someone of that quality, of that skill and talent, should be in the top five today in the world, and he just, like, it was pretty damning of him to say that he's the most underprepared player, and that's sort of unfortunate. So I mean, it's Tsitsipas, or even we've seen it with Zverev in this tournament, for example. What's going wrong with those guys? I'll take yours first, Rutwij, and then Rohan's.
Yeah. I mean, see, honestly speaking, at that stage or at that level, they might be having such a good team to support them on most of these things. So it's I feel sometimes it's kind of controversial too. You never know. Tsitsipas might just come back with a big win in the coming few tournaments, and everyone will just forget about all this. So um, the way in which they train, and there have been other controversial statements. For example, if you guys have heard about Nick Kyrgios talking about the fact that between Alcaraz and Sinner, Sinner would probably end up being the next legend, because Alcaraz is someone who has his what do you say, diversions. He goes out party in Ibiza and things like that. So, uh, but then you still see the results that he's getting, right? So, irrespective of what they might be going through, or what are the reasons for maybe their underperformance, I'm sure there is always a way for someone at that stage to have a comeback and start performing well.
What about you, Rohan? Like, coming from a coach's perspective, also, I think, what would you like to add to that?
Honestly, like Rutwik said, it is very hard for us to ascertain what the real reason is, because all of them work really hard. I mean, all of them want to be at the top, do well at tournaments. So there are many factors outside the court as well. We really don't know what is happening in their personal lives or what they are going through. So all of that affects your tennis as well. Maybe it affects your preparation for certain tournaments. So I mean, it's hard to say, but they definitely have the skill to come back. I mean, there's no doubt about that. All these
And
players that you all the players that you mentioned, they definitely have the skill to come back, and you never know. I mean, they just can do really well in the coming tournaments. You never know.
yeah, right. And so, like, having been a tennis player and now a tennis coach, how hard is it, for players to sort of have that transition or that cutoff from, personal life, and I'm sure everybody has n number of things going on in their personal lives, to being on court on match day, playing through a tournament that's 2 weeks long, and you're playing back to back almost every alternate day, sometimes every day. So how hard is it to, or what does it take to sort of have that transition or that cutoff?
No, I think it's really hard. You have to travel week after weeks. It's not easy, and you will not definitely. I mean, leave the top two, three players, but most of the players are doing the same thing what those players are doing. They're traveling in and every week, and they might have bad tournaments. They might lose early, but you still have to keep preparing. So it's not easy. It can take a toll mentally as well. So the transition is not easy. I mean, you have to balance your personal life as well as your professional life, and it is definitely not easy. It can definitely take a toll uh, on your mental health as well, apart from your physical health. Because in sports there are no retakes, right? I mean, if you
Yeah.
don't do well, you don't play a point, you lose the point. You don't have another chance. It is definitely a tough ride.
Yeah, in fact, I read an article a week ago, which sort of said that amongst all the sports that are there in the world, tennis is the one that sort of can leave you feeling the loneliest, be it at the top or be it at the bottom. It's something that when you are on court, you're alone on court. Even your support team, it's off court, so it can either be the best or it can really leave you feeling the loneliest.
And one more thing we need to consider is we are talking about good teams that travel with you for tournaments. We are talking about probably the top 150 or 100 players in the world, ranked in the top 100. The other players also go through the same grind without that much of support. So it is even more difficult for them, to start off.
Yeah, I think that's an important insight as well. Because, I mean, and also coming to the women's side of the tournament, and Coco Gauff sort of, after her first round exit, gave this statement that, she found it, the transition from clay to grass, within a period of 2 weeks is what sort of she reasoned it as one of the reasons why she sort of got herself knocked out in the first round, having won the French Open, playing so well against Sabalenka in that final. So Rutwij, just this tournament, in a way, we've had a record of about 36 seeded players that were knocked out in the first two rounds, and
Yeah.
that's a record for, I think, any Grand Slam so far. um, what is your analysis? Is there a, like, is it just just coincidence, or is it is there a particular reason for it? Is it schedules, or is it also the heat in at Wimbledon? I mean, I don't know. It's just out there for you guys to.
I mean, honestly speaking, I am also quite surprised with something like this happening, right? I mean, you usually have a couple of those cases where, top seeded players drop off in early stages. But this year it has been quite different. And uh, I've also, read about a couple of cases where they were talking about some changes in the court. So with the kind of grass that has been implemented at Wimbledon, the fact that there are no line umpires, which is a big change, uh,
Mhm.
and I feel when it comes to top seeded players losing in initial rounds, right? It is also something to do with the change in climate, the change in crowd support, the uh, continuous change in the surface that they are playing on. Like we've all seen Medvedev complain so much about clay. Now I'm feeling that these are and the media and all has a big role to play in this, right? They criticize, they glorify at the same time. So, if at all a player is not mentally that strong enough to take in all of this, right, from like public sentiments, media pressure, that tends to impact your overall training, is what I think. Because of which, you're not at your best when you get into a new tournament on a new surface, and maybe that is why, that lack of training or a little bit of attention, diversion or something that got impacted. I don't know. I mean, Rohan, you would probably have more insights to this.
Yeah. I think apart from other reasons, the main reason why we see a lot of seeded players getting knocked out at Wimbledon is the surface. Grass is a very tricky surface to play. I mean, I've played on grass court myself. The ball stays really low. It's really hard to move. If you see a lot of players have a lot of problem with their footing. They slip a lot. We've seen a lot of players fall at Wimbledon. So
Mhm.
it's a very tricky surface to play. And traditionally also, not only this year, there are a lot of seeds that have lost in the initial rounds. I mean, right from Steffi Graf to Pete Sampras. I remember Agassi losing to Sichapan, and
Yeah.
Dustin Brown playing some outrageous shots to beat Nadal. So I mean, it has happened traditionally. It's a very tricky surface to play, not like the other surface that we have, not like the French Open or maybe Australian and the US Open. it's easier, comparatively easier than grass. So I think that is the one of the main reasons, apart from other reasons, why we see a lot of seeded players losing in the initial rounds at Wimbledon.
Is that also why Wimbledon is such a prestigious tournament? I mean, it's like today the only Grand Slam on grass, and I mean today as in for in the Open era, but also given the nature of challenges that it provides and a smaller window for players to sort of get accustomed to before the tournament actually starts, and then the whole vibe also around the legacy and the history of the club itself. I think I'm sure that adds to the prestige, but is also the surface a factor in uh, sort of deciding why this is still one of the most sought out crowns in the tennis world.
Yeah, definitely. That is one of the major factors, definitely. Because if you see all the players, they always dream of winning Wimbledon, apart from other slams, obviously. But their dream is to, win Wimbledon. That is what we've heard from so many players in their post-match, speeches or whenever they talk. I mean, they really want to win Wimbledon for sure.
I think for any tennis player, the dream is just to play on center court. I mean, if you are a intermediate level player, also you will always dream that you want to go and play on center court at some point of time.
Yeah, true. And if you're a fan, you at least want to witness a match on
Exactly.
center court.
Yeah, I was about to say that at least witness a match.
Yeah, and I think so. Iga Swiatek, I mean, she did win her first Wimbledon crown, and it was dominant. One of the fastest matches. I think the third fastest probably in the history of tennis finals. I think the second Bagel sort of had Wimbledon. Uh, so was that sort of expected? I mean, it was expected that she would win, but was that dominance expected? Or would it have been different had Sabalenka been in the final in place of uh, what would have been different?
And the scoreline was definitely not expected. To lose a Grand Slam final at six love is definitely not expected. I mean, I definitely Swiatek played well, but I think really feel sad for Amanda. I mean,
Yeah,
she tried really hard, but I mean, she went for her strokes, but there's no. It just happens, Some days you just don't perform. It was just one of her days because maybe if Sabalenka would have got to the finals, the score would have been different. But I mean, it's just one of those days. I really feel sad for her.
what about you, Rutwij?
Yeah, I mean, same. I mean, no one expected the score for sure. But I don't know. I feel that Sabalenka Swiatek would have been a much more tougher match. The kind of crowd support and the impact that Sabalenka has on the game is, I feel, is a little more dominant, aggressive, approach that she has. Uh, so yeah, that probably would have been a little more different.
So coming to that, because there's been a lot of talk in the media as well, and especially given Sabalenka's, she's performing well. She reached the final at the French Open semi-final here, but there has been a lot of talk about, her sort of not going that one step ahead and finishing matches, which she should on paper and even later in the match be winning. And she just sort of lets it go. And what are your guys? What is your take on that, Rohan? Because I mean, she is a top seeded player and she should be winning more titles than, or at least reaching more finals than she is right now.
I think we again come back to the psychological aspect of the game. She's still if I'm not wrong, she's still the best player in the world. I mean, as far as the ranking is concerned, she's
Yes,
still she's still a top player in the world.
she's still top rated. Yeah.
Correct, correct. So, I mean, she definitely has the game to win slams. It's just that she's getting, little agitated, frustrated. Even in the initial matches we saw, she won a very close match initially also at this year's Wimbledon. She got through uh, a very close match. So I think it has got to do with her mental makeup. If she can kind of get a hang of it, I think definitely she has the game to win more slams.
Yeah, because it was very controversial, even after the French Open
Well,
final, when sort of just, in the press conference said that she made a lot of mistakes instead of, sort of appreciating that, even Coco Gauff was equally up for the challenge, because when you win, it's not just that, I mean, like you lose, but the other person wins as well.
Yeah, I think Sabalenka, like Rohan rightly pointed out, she initially a few, I think last year or last to last year, she had a very, focused game. And now that whole shift we can see where the frustrations are coming out, the press conference comments are, off track. And like we all have seen, media exaggerates things a lot. You keep thinking about it, and that kind of like leads to a little bit of divergence from your goals. So let's hope that it doesn't happen with Sabalenka. She's an amazing player, and she likes to dominate the game throughout. So hopefully we'll be able to see a little bit more of her game in the coming slams.
Yeah, yeah. We all, I mean, as fans, we definitely hope so, because I mean, she's such a wonderful player to watch on court. Uh, so coming to another, I mean, the men's champion Sinner, he had a lucky escape against Dimitrov, and I mean, now it will be talked about a lot, because he was 2 sets down and 2-all in the third set. So as a what could have been sort of a situation, but with Dimitrov, it has been uh, a repetitive thing where injuries have plagued a career that could have sort of seen more success probably. Rohan, how does a player deal with that? Because, I mean, you have been a player as well. And just again, I mean, we are coming back to the mental aspect, but then these injuries, when they keep plaguing you, to sort of retire from situations where you are, playing very strong. How do you deal with that?
No, it's very hard, because I mean, the match that he lost, he was leading 2 sets to love. I mean, the match that he had to forfeit because of injury. Yeah. So it's very hard, but you have to keep bouncing back and keep working hard. I mean, and the team that you have plays a very important role. They have to be around you, kind of encourage you to, not give up and keep working hard. It is definitely hard, especially in his case, because he has been injured so many times now. So it's definitely not easy. Then you start thinking about negative things, whether it's time to call it a day and all those. I'm sure those thoughts must have come to him. But he's a really good player, and I have a soft corner for him because he has a single and backhand. There are that's a topic
Yes.
topic of another discussion, because there's a lot of discussion about whether single and backhands are going to remain in the sport now because of the speed and the spin at which people play. So probably nobody's going to have a single and backhand in the future probably. But yeah, I mean, he's a really good player, and he had, I mean, Zverev was under a lot of pressure against him. He almost
Yeah.
had that match.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, the single and backhand that you mentioned, that was one of the two topics I was going to come to, later on. But now that you've brought it up, we can just, have a discussion on that. So there were two topics, like, recently, that have been in the talking circuit in the tennis world. One is the, diminishing single-handed backhand, and the other is also the diminishing serve and volley play. Because of late, that's also been something that has not been seen as often. There have been multiple reasons that people have sort of cited on that. So, what is your take on both of those aspects? I'll start first with Rohan and then with Rutwij. Why is the single-handed backhand sort of going away? Because it's such, a skillful and elegant shot to even see as fans, but even as players, it's royal in a way.
So what has actually happened is, if you see the modern game, there's so much of topspin on the ball. The ball comes at a really, high height. It comes above your shoulder. So technically, for a single hand player, it's very hard to hit a ball that is above your shoulder. It's really hard to get the ball deep. So if you remember, Nadal used to catch Federer by hitting a lot of balls over his backhand. On his backhand, the spin that Nadal used to get, Federer used to struggle because the ball used to come above his shoulder. That I think is one of the main reasons. Also, what happens is, on the return of serve, because the serves are so fast, it's pretty hard to hit a single and drive. Then you keep blocking the ball. So that is one of the other reasons. But I still hope that players find a way to hit a single hand backhand, because if you saw Dimitri, for example, people who hit a single hand backhand, they have such amazing and effective slice. He troubled Sinner so
Yes.
much with his slice. If you analyze the match, he hit so many backhand slice. So that is one of the reasons why, to answer your question, the single hand backhand is kind of diminishing, or not many players have it. Also, the way we teach now, the sports has changed in a way that kids start very early nowadays. So for them to start hitting a single and backhand is very hard. So if you start at the age of 5, for example, you don't have enough strength to hit a single and backhand. So then they start with double hand and then develop into a double hand backhand. Once they grow older, there are very few players who actually transition. For example, Pete Sampras had a double hand backhand, but then he switched to single hand when he was, I think, 14 or 15. He has mentioned it in his autobiography as well. So that is one of the main reasons why we see a lot of double handers today.
Yeah, I was in fact while watching the match yesterday itself, and like you just brought up the Nadal versus Federer sort of comparison, where Nadal would work on shots to sort of negate Federer's single-handed backhand. But on the other side, yesterday, I mean in yesterday's match, I was feeling that with Sinner being so dominant, Alcaraz could have probably just changed the game around with a couple of slices, just to change the pace of the game as well and sort of get more time to come back into points. Rutwij, what is like your view as a tennis player also? Who, I mean, I've seen you play. You also like the single-handed backhand. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Rohan is a big promoter of the single-handed backhand, and I have myself also transitioned from a double-handed backhand earlier to now working on hitting those topspin above the shoulder shots. So yes, definitely it is difficult to adapt and learn, which is why most of the players probably think that if my double-handed backhand is traditionally working well for me, what is the need for me to change and then hamper my game overall? That is what I feel most players might be thinking. But I feel there are some advantages to it as well. You can, just quickly place the ball accurately instead of taking that long backswing that is needed for, the double-handed backhand. So if you are, improvising on your game and working on that particular shot, I think it may work better, definitely with slicing and all. Also, it is very elegant to see someone hit a single-handed backhand, right? So I think that is an added advantage, I would say.
yeah, and I think it just adds an extra dimension to the entire sport. In terms of making a point or making the entire point, sort of playing around with the point. So yeah, as a fan also, I hope that we see a resurgence of the single-handed backhand. I mean, I'm sure players are also thinking around that. But like Rohan said, I think the kind of power games that we have nowadays is impacting probably how players are training. So there was another sort of point of discussion this Wimbledon, and Rohan already sort of brought it up with there not being any umpires, no line umpires to call any calls, and that has also sort of created a bit of controversy in this year's Wimbledon. There were a couple of matches where a lot of points were definitely an error from the entire system, which was then sort of mooted out to be an error on made to be a human error that made the AI system work incorrectly. But as a fan, I was pretty sort of I was looking forward to the entire vibe around having linesmen and umpires on court. And like, what is your view? Is this the future of tennis? Like, will be, because it's been adopted by most Grand Slams, and I mean, it seems like the federation also wants it to be adapted across all tournaments. And is this the future, or do we see a mix of both the human and the uh, AI element coming into play? Rohan, I'll
Personally, if
start
you
with you.
ask me, technology is definitely going to play a part in sports. Seen it in other sports as well. But I personally feel that it should be a hybrid, and we should have a human element as well. Especially if you see a tournament like Wimbledon, for 147 years you had linesmen wearing a particular uniform where people are used to seeing them. It's a custom, it's a vibe, like you said. And suddenly one year this year you don't have anybody. There's no linesman. So I think And more than that, if a player is not happy with a certain call, we can have technology to answer your questions. But there, the human element should not be completely changed. There definitely should be line judges, uh, uh, as well as technology. It should be a hybrid model, according to me.
What about you, Rutwij? Because I mean, as many as 250, umpires are employed by Wimbledon every year, and I mean, it's something that even as fans and as players, it's something that we look forward to.
You guys are absolutely right. I think it was also aesthetically pleasing, to see them stand behind the players in those uniforms, and and from a game perspective, if we have to say, I was watching a couple of matches where players were getting frustrated, because it was a clear decision in terms of if it is an in or a out, and I don't know how the system goofed up and gave the wrong call. So had it been like, a linesman standing there who would have, verified the whole decision, that would have made it easier. So I'm sure it takes a big toll on the player's mindset also in that moment, where, you tend to probably lose the next couple of points just because the wrong call was given, and that too, because of this change that has come in. So, yeah, I feel like Rohan said, it feels like it should be a hybrid, option where you have a linesman. If at all the player has some concern over it, you have technology to, counter it. That I feel is what should be implemented.
I read
Yeah.
about
So
just to add, I read about a player where she had actually won a point and there was no call. I mean,
Yeah,
there was some goof up with the technology, so
yes.
they had to replay the point, and she ended up they
they they made her replay the point, and
correct. They had to replay the point, and
yeah,
she has gone on record saying that she lost the match because of that.
Yes,
yeah,
yes. I mean,
and
that was
later on there was an article that came in that later on the umpire confessed as well that he also knew that the point was an out. But they still made her replay the point and not give it to her. So that's
No, I
that's
mean the interesting part is, does not the chair umpire have the final call on this? I mean, that's a little
I think
it's a
I
little
mean the chair
funny,
umpire
right?
does, because there have been a lot of calls where the chair umpire has overruled the call by the computer, let's say. So it was
Because
it was
I'm wondering because the point was replayed in this case. So I'm just thinking if
I'm thinking probably the chair umpire at that moment gave a decision of replaying the point which he couldn't take back or something. And then later on it was like, okay, actually it was an out. I shouldn't have made them replays.
Yeah, but I think, like what Rohan said, I would also prefer going back to the Hawkeye system, where, as players, you also have referrals. So, it's sort of up to you as well while playing the point to, because you do see, whether the ball is in or out while playing. So, you can sort of make a judgment call there as well if, it's a blatantly wrong call, instead of being totally dependent on technology, and then it sort of goofing up to you ending up on the losing side. And So I mean, we just there is this next segment of my podcast, fancast, as I would like to call it, which is a bit of a trivia based segment. So being tennis buffs, I'm going to ask you two questions. Let's see, what what your answers are. One, the first is, why does a tennis game start from love? What is the significance or sort of history behind it? Do you guys know about it or have any idea about it?
I'm not sure if this is right, but I think I read somewhere that it is associated with a clock. So it basically starts with, love, that is 0, and then it goes till 15, 30, 45, and then again coming back to love. So basically then 40 all is why, it's called a deuce, because then you have like a 15, 30, and 45, and then you can't again go back to a 12 or something. But yeah, I'm not sure if that logic is right.
Actually, that was sort of that is the answer to my next question, which is, why is the game scored why are the points in the game scored like, 15, 30, 40 deuce and then the win? But I mean, you gave I mean, that's one of the theories for that, where, they had to base it over the clock hand, and they started at, 15, 30, It used to be 45 and 60, but then they introduced something as in between to, if deuce was meant to be in a way where there is no winner of the point because it's equal, and then because they wanted to add a winner, they had it at 40 all, and then 50 would be like the advantage and 60 would be the win.
Interesting.
But
Yeah,
the
interesting.
and because all of this was started by the French when they sort of invented the whatever are now the what is the law of tennis in a way. The reason why it starts as love is because it that the word for egg in French is love, which is pronounced as love in English. So it's sort of, that's how, because the scoreline is 0-0, so it's like two eggs to start with. And that's one of the theories why it starts at love, similar to, how in cricket we have the duck.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
So the final, the final question that I have, or sort of the point of discussion, with now Djokovic, like we discussed at the beginning of the fancast, reaching the end of his illustrious career in a way. Like with age catching up, we might see him play for a year or two at max, probably. I mean, realistic. So let's get on to the GOAT debate. Who, according to you, uh, who would you say is the GOAT of tennis as it stands today? Rohan, first. I'll take your call on that.
I'm personally a big Federer fan. I mean, I still just love Federer and obviously the way he played, the skill that he had. But you, to ask me, to be very honest with you, I think Djokovic is the GOAT of tennis. Looking at what he has done over the last few years and the number of slams he's won, he's definitely the GOAT.
What about you, Rutwij?
My answer is the same, Nandan. I think Federer had a class. I mean, he had the skill, and when we compare all three of them, Nadal and Djokovic, you could evidently see that they put in a lot of effort, hard work into their game. Whereas Federer was, for him, it was easy. Those down the line backhand winners and his serve and everything for that matter. So even I am like a big Federer fan, have always been, but you have to accept. I mean, 24 slams, he is on top of it. He's definitely the GOAT of tennis. So
Yeah, I mean, statistically, yeah, he is the GOAT of tennis. And the reason I brought up this discussion is because I read a paper and then I did a bit of analysis of my own, because even I, being a Federer fan, and if you sort of divide the slams won by the three of them into two halves in terms of their age, because when Nadal and Federer were playing, they were like two rivals playing together. They won more than 50% of their slams before turning 30, statistically. So Federer won 17 of his 20 slams before he turned at 30, so before he turned 31. And Nadal won, I think, 12 of his 12 or 13 of his slams before he turned 31. Whereas Djokovic has won only 5 or 6 of his slams before he turned 30. So most of his slams wins have come after he turned 30, when these guys were sort of either plagued with injuries or not probably at their best in terms of peaking in tennis. And Djokovic also being younger to Federer, he was sort of at the peak at that point of time. And the entire debate over there was that, with Djokovic, there was no other person like Federer had a Nadal to
yeah,
challenge him in those wins, and which is why he had a lot more wins than what would have been had they been shared. Um, is that a factor? What would you say?
Look, to win 24 slams, you need to have some special talent. Whether you
Correct.
have competition or don't have competition, I mean, it's just incredible what he has done. So I think we have to accept that he's the GOAT.
yeah. And these are like finding loopholes to,
Yeah.
undermine his achievements. We can't really say that. But I'll tell you what, I was secretly happy when he lost the semifinals. I didn't want him to cope up on the Federer record at Wimbledon. So
Yes.
at least that one thing stays with Federer. So
No, yeah, I mean, even if you don't see the Wimbledon record, like the sheer number of records that Djokovic has, statistically, not just that he has so many Grand Slams, but also Uh, Put together, he has the maximum number of weeks as number one, maximum number of years that he's ended the year as number one. I think he has eight. I think in the next best is I think five or six. So you know, it's not just the slams, but the consistency throughout. Even staying number one and then winning those slams, irrespective of whether he had any competition or not. Like Rohan said, I think that sort of makes him the GOAT. And I also feel like, his impact also outside the court, just, in terms of from, coming from where he is, the background that he came from, the struggle that he had, that also adds more sort of, like a more better impact to, his entire contribution, not just today, but probably going ahead to the world of tennis.
I think one more thing that stands out with both Djokovic and Nadal is the how hard they've worked on their game technically over the years. The game has evolved so much. So Nadal, if you remember, initially did not have such a great backhand. He did not have a slice. His net game was also pretty. The percentage was very less. But in the later part of his career, he played some good doubles as well. I mean, his net game improved so much. Same with Djokovic. Federer always, had those skills. He was good at the net. He had a good backhand. He had an all-round game. But these guys have worked so hard on their game. So that is something that is amazing.
Yeah, I think with Djokovic, especially like what Rutwij said, every year on year, you have these phases of 2, 3 years where, you feel that, he's sort of uh, waving away towards, whatever is coming up as a new challenge. And then he sort of tweaks his game over the break after the US Open, comes back to the Australian Open, wins it. And, then it starts like a cycle of, winning Grand Slams once again.
I think personally, I feel the best chance Djokovic has now is the Australian Open next year. I think that is his best chance to win a slam.
I think as a fan,
Yeah,
I would like him to win the Australian Open, win his 25th, and retire on a.
yeah, yeah. And get
Okay.
some memory, I think, from Australian Open, like
Yes,
how
I
they
mean,
did for.
pardon?
I'm saying he probably will get some memory from Australian Open, like how Roland Garros did for Nadal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I hope so because like I think he's been as dominant at the Australian Open as Nadal has been at the French Open. So yeah, great guys. I think that brings us to the end of the entire segments of the Fancast. It was great having you guys here. I hope you guys also enjoyed uh, the general discussions around, and you please give me your feedback in terms of what can be changed, suggestions, as the entire chapter of these fancasts goes ahead with other sports and I mean including tennis. But yeah, it was great having you guys, and I'm sure even the audience will have great insights from a coach's perspective, from a player's perspective, as let's call us as amateur experts, but still, voicing our opinions on the game that we love a lot.
Yes, thank you,
Thank you.
Nandan. Great, being part of this, and not experts for sure, amateurs itself, but then still, having these discussions just brings up a lot of insights towards the sport, which is a good thing. So thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Thank you, Nandan, for having us. I had a great time. Thank you.
Thanks, guys, and thanks for your time because it's pretty late at night as well. So hope you guys sleep well, and I'll see you guys soon.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
bye.
Good night. Bye.